I'd like to call this hearing to order. This is an ag field hearing. We appreciate all of you being here very much, and of course the staff that has worked so hard to arrange this formal field hearing. We'll thank all of them at the end, which is traditionally how we do it, but there's a lot of folks who work very hard to make it happen, and we appreciate them very much. And of course, we greatly appreciate the incredible people that have come here for this field hearing. And I want to begin by thanking some of them before we, or as we go into formal remarks. Certainly my colleagues from the Senate, who are all absolute leaders in agriculture and in all aspects of agriculture, whether it's writing the next farm bill, writing previous farm bills, as well as writing the next farm bill. And undoubtedly we'll be talking about that today, but really in all things agriculture. One of my absolute closest friends in the Senate from Arkansas, Senator John Boozman, who is our ranking member on the Ag Committee. And he's been up here before, and not only an esteemed colleague, but also a very good friend, and we certainly appreciate him being here. And of course, then two senators that are no strangers to this region. Senator Klobuchar, who I've been working with since governor days, and I mean, it goes almost back to her attorney general days, but we've worked together on many issues from flooding to you name it, agriculture and everything else. And she's been very good about working with us on so many important issues. For example, flood protection for the Red River Valley. Very important and meaningful things. And Senator Tina Smith, who, same thing. We are working together on veterans issues and many other things. And of course, she is no stranger to this region as well from her time as Lieutenant Governor, working on issues that truly matter, not only to her state of Minnesota, but certainly to North Dakota. And that is one of the amazing things about this region. We really are a confluence here in the Red River Valley for North Dakota, Minnesota, even South Dakota, Canada. It really is an area where we bring people together and make great things happen. And it is certainly an area where we are absolute leaders in agriculture. We're also very privileged to have somebody else here who's been here before, and I love saying about two individuals who've been here before in other capacities as well, and I want to thank them as well right at the outset. Certainly the Honorable Xochitl Torres Small. Soch is easier for me. I know I never get it quite right, but going back to her days as Secretary for Rural Development, she's been here and she's helped us on important issues, particularly with our livestock producers and other areas as well. And she, of course, now is Deputy Secretary of the United States Department of Agriculture. And we know how much in demand you are. And so you're probably coming from somewhere and going somewhere, but we're sure glad you're here today. And Dr. Chavonda Jacobs-Young, who is the leader of all things research at USDA. And of course, that's a big part of the focus today being the future of agriculture. And precision agriculture and research, of course, are huge when we talk about the future of agriculture, and certainly huge as we write this next farm bill. North Dakota is an ag powerhouse for this country. And you all know that. Certainly Arkansas and Minnesota are ag powerhouses as well. And our fellow senators here will talk about that. But they will all acknowledge to you that North Dakota is an absolute ag powerhouse. And North Dakota State University has long been one of the leading schools of agriculture, ag research, ag extension in the nation. And again, you'll hear about the University of Minnesota, the University of Arkansas. They do great things in ag too, no question about it. But my colleagues will acknowledge that NDSU, home of the mighty bison, I had to add that, is an absolute leader in agriculture and a big reason why North Dakota is an ag powerhouse for this country. But we are building on that. And that is why it's so important that our colleagues, my colleagues are here, as well as the leaders at USDA, is because we are really building on what NDSU is already doing. You are here at the Grand Farm okay? Innovation Shop. This is the Innovation Shop, multi-million-dollar facility at Grand Farm, where they are taking precision agriculture to the next level. And so now you've got NDSU with all the amazing things they do and research and precision ag. You've got all these amazing companies that we have here in the Valley, and I could start naming them off, whether it's John Deere or AGCO or Case New Holland or all the companies on Bobcat. And already, you know, those are all clear leaders in the industry, but there's so many more, right? And so you've got a confluence of all those things, and now we've put together NDSU together with Grand Farm and the Ag Research Service, ARS, at USDA, Department of Ag, into a formal cooperative agreement. We're not just working together, we have a formal collaborative relationship now, which we fund through Ag Appropriations, that is just building on that synergy in regard to precision agriculture, ag research, and the future of agriculture. And so this hearing is not just about what we're doing here in the Valley, but how it affects the entire country when we talk about the very best farmers and ranchers that produce the highest quality, lowest cost food supply in the world that benefits every single American every single day, and many others around the globe as well. So in addition to that formal alliance, that formal partnership now between NDSU, Grand Farm, and ARS, now we have also added a national policy center that will really be the expert on all things crop insurance and other very important issues for our farmers and ranchers. And most recently, in addition to the National Policy Center now, we have the only National Science Foundation innovation engine in the country focused on agriculture. Now, there are other, and to the tune of about $160 million investment by our friends like Secretary Torres and others. $160 million, together with state funding, together with private sector funding, that's just the federal share. This innovation engine, Farms Innovation Engine with the National Science Foundation, again, all things related to the future of agriculture, and it's the only one in the country focused exclusively on agriculture. So that's what I mean when I say we are building on this incredible foundation that we have in agriculture. And the only way to really build, at least in the North Dakota way of doing it, is you build relationships. You build relationships with really good people like we have here today from all walks of life, public sector, private sector, state, local, federal, and they benefit. They benefit. We go into it with the understanding that it's not just about our benefit, that it has to be mutually beneficial. You got to give a little to get a little. Sometimes that gets lost in the political world, but it's fundamentally true for every walk of life. So, again, I want to thank all of you for being here. I do want to start, before I call in the first witness, by just acknowledging some of the statewide elected leaders and legislators that are here, in part because they're great and doing a great job, but in part because there's a lot of them. And I want people to know, that we appreciate, when folks come to our state, we appreciate it. And we show up, and we thank them, and we acknowledge it, and because all of these individuals are working very hard on behalf of agriculture as well. So it's only fitting that I start with our Ag Commissioner, Doug Goring. Ag Commissioner Goring, thank you for being here and for all your great work. Also, from our Public Service Commission, somebody who knows agriculture very well, Julie Fedorchak. Julie, where are you? Julie? And from the Senate, also people that get it. Let me introduce from our State Senate, Mark Weber, Bob Erbely, Kathy Hoeven, Jana Murdahl, Ron Sorvog, Terry Wanzek, and Cole Connolly. Why don't you guys just stand for a minute so they can, or raise your hand? Yep. And from the House, Paul Thomas, and I'll have you all stand for a minute at the end here too. Paul Thomas, Jared Hagert, Greg Steeman, Craig Hedlund, Jay Fisher, Bill Tweet, Mike Nathy, Don Vigasa, Jonathan Worry, Brandy Pyle, Carrie McLeod, Dick Anderson, Karen Anderson, Cindy Schreiber-Beck, Mike Beltz, Mike Brandenburg, Austin Schauer, and Zach Ista. Would you stand for just a minute? And thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will turn to our first group of witnesses. Again, I'm so pleased to have them there. We'll start with our one of our very good friends just across the river, as I say, somebody who's come up here on a myriad of issues over the years, but who is right now actually second on the Democrat side of the aisle on the Ag Committee. Senator Stabenow is, of course, the chair. Right next to her is Amy Klobuchar, who will be either the chairman or the ranking member next year, one way or the other. So she's got a big voice when it comes to writing a farm bill and certainly all things agriculture. Senator Klobuchar.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, John. Thank you. Well, I guess I would start by saying, just like I'm not competitive, you don't have to stand, but anyone who has lived in Minnesota, worked in Minnesota, does business in Minnesota, or went to school in Minnesota, please wave your hands. Yeah, woo, Gophers. Okay, just wanted to point that out. Okay, John and I have been good friends for a very, very long time, and we believe the river doesn't divide our states, but it brings us together, as you know, with this incredible spirit of our communities when there's flooding, but also the incredible possibilities we have. And this ag innovation is certainly right at the top of the list for not only helping our own country, but for feeding the world and fueling the world. So I couldn't be more happy that he put this together. I will say this is the coolest field hearing I've ever been at. Wouldn't you agree, to our esteemed witnesses? Complete with this beautiful view, thank you to Grand Farm, this beautiful facility, a rose-colored gavel of some kind that is, yes, quite cool. And then, of course, there was the music, which you should know at some point, Senator Hoeven said, how do you cut this off so we can start? But I did like the idea of background music through the entire hearing. I think when I think about ag innovation, I think about Norman Borlaug. I was so proud when the state of Iowa actually sponsored his statue for one of their 2 statues in Statutory Hall a few years back. And I got to be there because, he studied at the University of Minnesota and did a lot of work in Minnesota. You think way back zone, he fed the world with what they called then the Green Revolution. He figured out what to do with seeds so things could grow in really hard climates, and it helped us here at home as well. That was innovation. And we cannot rest on our laurels in America. We cannot do this. I think that we heard this from the doctor from one of our esteemed witnesses last night, that we can't rest on our laurels. And that's what is so exciting about what's going on in North Dakota, Minnesota, Arkansas, across our country. Strong research funding is critical for ensuring American farmers can feed the world. You think about the needs if you go to the problems, $20 billion in crop losses in 2022 alone from natural disasters, not including infrastructure damage, livestock losses. We know what we've seen with some of the animal diseases out there, including avian flu and poultry, and it affects our food supply. Across the country, poultry flocks causing a loss of 43 million egg-laying hens in 2022 alone. I don't want to emphasize the challenges, but no one better knows than farmers what those challenges are. But I also want to emphasize the positive. So ag research helps us on both sides. It helps us to fix these things, which we know have plagued our country in different ways over time, whether it's barley rust, whether it was H1N1. I personally ate bacon on national TV to show it was safe at that time. I did that. But we know that we're going to need this kind of research. It also can be used as a barrier to trade, where countries lift up these barriers that may not be fair or oftentimes are blatantly not fair. And so having this kind of solutions on the disease front matters. But I really want to talk, and I know we are today going to talk about the next step beyond that, and that's the excitement of this innovation. Senator Boozman was in Minnesota. It was a little colder when he came, and we went to a farm and saw the glory of precision agriculture and what that means to a farm family when they can know what they can use to have less water, where they can get at what they need to put pesticides, and do it in a really smart way that's better for them financially, better for our environment, and better for our country. So I'm really excited about precision ag. Senator Hoeven and I have worked together on a number of bills, including one to make it easier to get loans overall for farmers. And then I have another specific bill with Senator Fisher, and Senator Hoeven's in my bill is in both the Democratic and Republican versions of the Farm Bill that we really want to actually get done this year, right, to my colleagues. And Senator Smith actually heads up the Commodity Subcommittee of Ag. So there is just some real work that's being done right now when it comes to loans, and specifically loans for precision agriculture. Precision ag can greatly save farmers time and money, and I think that we need to make that a major point of our research. But it has to even go beyond that to the seeds that can feed the world. We've seen the droughts in many parts of our world. I was in India last year and met with the Farmers Union. There they call them FUs. It's a true story. I brought it up to Modi. I saw an FU and he got very excited, to the horror of my colleagues. But the point is that there was American technology being used to make it easier to plant seeds in the middle of some really difficult territory. Sugar beet producers in the Red River Valley have different soil types, growing seasons, and weather patterns than those farmers will face in rice growing in eastern Arkansas. And as we work to develop sound agriculture policy, we have to make sure that one size doesn't fit all, and that we understand how this research is going to work in other parts of the country. But I'm just honored to be here with my friend Senator Hoeven and my two great colleagues, and look forward to hearing from them and being part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. And now we'll turn to our ranking member on the Ag Committees. As I say, somebody who's been up here before, not only to see what's going on with Grand Farm, but any issues. Somebody who is actually not only worked in the public sector on behalf of farmers and ranchers, but he actually used to raise cattle in Arkansas. So he's actually an optometrist by trade, but also a cattle rancher. And so he brings such great practical experience, but also just brings incredible relationships, not only incredible relationships on our side of the aisle, but across the aisle. And as we all know, to get a farm bill done, that's what it takes. It's about putting people together on both sides of the aisle from all different parts of the country. And agriculture is a big, diverse industry in our country, and we have to have a farm bill that works for all of our farmers and ranchers across the entire country, across all 50 states. So again, thank you for being here and for being part of this panel. Senator Boozman, Arkansas.
Thank you, John. I am an eye doctor, so if you're having trouble with your glasses or contacts or want to talk about glaucoma or any of those things, I'll be glad to give you some free advice later on. I want to thank John for inviting me. It's good to be here. I think this is the third year in a row that I've been here. This is becoming an annual tradition. It's great to discuss innovation in agriculture, the opportunities that exist for the industry through research, advancement, and technologies like precision agriculture. Thank you to Grand Farm for hosting today's important discussion. You all are doing the hard work of developing solutions to some of agriculture's most challenging problems and ensuring these exciting new technologies are actually making it to the farm, which is so important. We appreciate all the hard work that you do. While we're here to focus on research and innovation in agriculture, I'm also so pleased to join with Senator Klobuchar and Smith, along with Senator Hoeven. These are three of the most hardworking, thoughtful people on the Ag Committee. They do a tremendous job, and are also good friends. You know, you hear a lot about the rancor in Washington. The nice thing about agriculture is it's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's about easy things like commodities, regions of the country, all of those. But it is important that you understand that we are working as a group to try and get things done. Similar to North Dakota, Minnesota, and Arkansas, agriculture is the economic underpinning of rural communities across the country. And no matter where we are, who we're talking to, we all hear the same themes from our producers and rural communities. Trade is vital for agriculture. Investments in broadband and modern infrastructure needed in rural America, and interest rates and input costs are eating into producers' profitability. So it's not a surprise our producers everywhere tell us the future feels very uncertain. This farm bill must be absolutely, it must absolutely put producers first. They need more farm in the farm bill. Although our efforts to draft a new farm bill are taking a little longer than expected, I know the senators serving on the Agriculture Committee have every intention of crafting a new and improved farm bill that meets the needs producers face today. But more important than just getting this done, is getting it done right. Today's topic of research and innovation in agriculture is an area we're scrutinizing through our farm bill process to ensure continued and improved research opportunities exist into the future. We must foster new technologies for the next generation of producers. Many on the Agriculture Committee favor ag policy in the Farm Bill, which would double funding for agricultural research, the investments in the Specialty Crop Research Initiative, the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research, and the 1890s Scholarship Program, and also would provide a generational investment in agriculture research facilities, which is so very important. But the majority of the research programs authorized by the Farm Bill depend on the Appropriations Committee. So that means we are grateful for the work of Senator Hoeven and our colleagues on the Agriculture Appropriations Subcommittee to identify and support agriculture's most urgent research needs through programs administered by the USDA, our impressive network of land-grant institutions, and various private sector and nonprofit partners. We also know investments in broadband infrastructure are critical for enabling producers to access the results of research, including precision agricultural technologies. Our framework reflects this need for greater connectivity. Precision agriculture technologies are helping our producers be better stewards of our environment and are supported by Farm Bill conservation programs. Resource concerns ranging from soil health to water quality and water quantity can be better addressed as these new technologies come online. In closing, I look forward to hearing from USDA Secretary Xochitl Torres. We appreciate all of her hard work. Undersecretary Chavonda Jacobs-John, which we also very much appreciate. They have big jobs with big responsibilities. And our other witnesses about the barriers to furthering innovation in agriculture and what policymakers need to be focused on to encourage innovation, make these technologies more affordable and accessible, and ensure safe and secure management of sensitive data. I'm pleased that Mr. Harrison Pittman, a proud Arkansan and director of the National Agricultural Law Center, is joining us today. The center, which is a unit of the University of Arkansas System of Agriculture and receives critical funding through USDA Agricultural Research Service, provides accessible, dependable, and objective legal analysis to food, environment, and agricultural stakeholders across the country. We are grateful for his expertise as we confront some of the legal implications of applying new and emerging technologies in agriculture. Thank you again, John, for holding today's important hearing.
Thank you, Senator Boozman. Again, thanks for being here and being part of this field hearing. Also, now I want to turn to Senator Smith for her comments. As I say, she's worked on many issues important to our region, and certainly agriculture is right at the top. Appreciate you being here. Actually, Minnesota has a unique position on the committee, on the Ag Committee, I think. It's the only state that has 2 members on.
Iowa. Sometimes Iowa
Oh.
wins. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. You're right.
But we
Iowa.
are unique, John. That's true.
We are.
Yeah.
That's right. No, Grassley, you're right, and Joni. But they do have 2 members, and that obviously gives them an incredible influence. Fortunately,
I'm not going to tell Grassley that you
I kind of,
favored.
I
them
thought he'd
over
moved
him.
on to judiciary and didn't show up that much yet. Not true. He's there.
He has tended to only get on in the year of a farm bill, so let's just let that.
The good news is that agriculture in Minnesota and North Dakota have a lot of similarities. And so as they're working on things that are important for farmers and ranchers, they're working on a lot of things that are important for our ranchers in North Dakota as well. So we're good with Minnesota having a lot of influence on the committee as well. But Senator Smith, thanks so much for being here and for your commitment to all things agriculture.
Well, thank you so much, Vice Chair Hoeven. I feel like I should call you Chair since you're chairing this meeting. And my good friend and colleague, I was telling folks last night that usually every Thursday afternoon when the senators get ready to head home, I call it the school bus. And there on the Midwestern school bus, you have me and Amy and John Hoeven and Kevin Kramer and often the senators from South Dakota and others. And so in that sort of ride home, we have a chance to connect on a lot of things, including our many shared interests. So I greatly appreciate being here along with Senator Boozman and my friend and colleague, Senator Klobuchar, to be a part of this really interesting field hearing. And I also want to thank Grand Farms. You all are doing really impressive work here, and it's wonderful to have a chance to see what you're doing. So as with North Dakota, agriculture, food, and energy are the backbone of Minnesota's economy, contributing $106 billion to our state's GDP and energizing over 388,000 jobs. And this ag sector is, of course, driven by technology and innovation, so staying on the forefront of research and technology is essential to us staying competitive. It's essential to higher farm income, essential to our national security and to our food security. And Minnesota has also long been a leader in agricultural innovation and invention, as Senator Klobuchar noted. The University of Minnesota, which is our flagship land-grant agricultural research institution, has been the source of internationally significant discoveries and accomplishments. We invented the Honeycrisp apple, cold, hardy wine grapes, and we also have created advances in shelf life and food safety, along with breakthroughs in precision agriculture. And this work continues today. At the University of Morris campus, we work on clean ammonia fertilizer, and that work has led to a pilot project to produce local clean fertilizer with the potential to give farmers an alternative to costly imported fertilizer. The USDA Cooperative Extension is helping farmers and ranchers in Minnesota put USDA research into action. For example, the University of Minnesota's Climate Adaptation Partnership is giving farmers new tools for climate forecasting and land management choices like cover crops and seed selection, and that's boosting their resilience and hopefully their bottom lines. The USDA has 2 Minnesota research facilities in St. Paul and in Morris. In St. Paul, the Cereal Disease Lab is researching diseases found in wheat and barley and oats, crops that are important, of course, to both Minnesota and North Dakota. And thanks to this research, grain farmers can continue to feed the world. In Morris, ARS researchers have developed a double cropping system so farmers can grow winter oil seeds as cover crops followed by soybeans the next summer. And this innovation can help to improve soil health and also boost bottom lines. These are just a few of the examples of the incredible innovation and research that are happening in agriculture, and we need them. Farmers are incredibly resistant, and they also face a whole host of challenges, whether it's fluctuating commodity prices, industry consolidation and concentration, high input costs, labor shortages, and severe and unpredictable weather. And these challenges make research even more important. Thankfully, support for agriculture research is bipartisan, and it is also true that our investments in ag research have fallen behind the rest of the world. According to the group Supporters for Agriculture Research, funding for ag research has declined by nearly a third since reaching a peak in 2002. The U.S. invests just 2% of its total research dollars into agriculture research, a percentage that is far outpaced by our global competitors. And agriculture research makes up actually less than 1% of the total Farm Bill authorization. So we have more work to do, which is why I think this field today, John, is so important to the work that we have ahead of us. Senator Hoeven, I'm so grateful for your leadership and the bipartisan work that you've done with Chair Heinrich on the Appropriations Subcommittee, including advancing a bill that increases funding for USDA research programs. That's incredibly important. And on the Senate Ag Committee, where we all serve, agriculture research is also a bipartisan issue. Minnesota farmers tell me that it is urgently important that we complete a bipartisan farm bill this year, and as we work towards that goal, we can't forget ag research. And I know that as frameworks, including the one that Chair Stabenow has put forward as a basis for finding common ground, includes many bipartisan provisions, including for agriculture research. So I want to thank you, Senator Hoeven, for holding this field hearing. Our two states share a lot in common, including our bedrock support for farming and agriculture. And I look forward to working with you and Senator Boozman and Senator Klobuchar and all of our colleagues in passing a strong bipartisan farm bill and to boost our support for ag research and technology.
Thank you, Senator Smith. Again, thanks to all three of our senators for joining us and for the great work on agriculture. And we are now going to turn to our two witnesses from USDA. And as I said, we are extremely pleased to have both of them here. And I'm going to start with Deputy Secretary Xochitl Torres Small. And you need to tell me how close I was on that one, Soch.
That was exceptional. That
Thank
was
you.
Really good.
Well,
But
I'm glad.
Soch is perfect.
See, that's why everybody likes you. Yeah. Thanks for being up here. Thanks for being up here when you were the leader of rural development, working with new innovative and creative programs then, and for your accessibility. And of course, it's always, in your role, just always important for making all the trains run on time and everything in USDA, but particularly important now as we work on a farm bill as well. And your commitment to, as we talk about the future of agriculture, to new and innovative things, which I know you're very open to. So again, thanks for being here, and we welcome your testimony.
Thank you so much, Senator Hoeven, and thank you for the first panel. Thank you so much, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Boozman, Senator Smith. It's a joy and an honor to get to work with you. It's also really exciting to see this appropriations hearing with the authorizing input and recognizing how crucial it is to have that collaboration. Earlier this spring, I got to participate in a land-grant institution college tour where I went across the country and visited with students who are the next generation of agriculture. And in one of those formats, I had a woman ask me a question. She asked, what distinguishes American ag research? And for me, what distinguishes American ag research is the direct connection to application. Through extension, through the way that ARS and NIFA across the board partner with farmers, work to show that what we are researching has a direct application to support farmers, feed the country, and feed the world, we are able to target that work intentionally. After that conversation, I learned that that woman was visiting from China, which underscores how other countries are looking at what we are doing with research and trying to outpace us. And as Senator Smith recognized, we are certainly facing that challenge when it comes to funding for agriculture research. When we look at 2002 being the time when we reached our peak, and in 2019, being in a place where we're at the same funding levels as we were in the 1970s. We know that other countries are attempting to outpace us to take on this work that we have done in the past. So what are the opportunities when it comes to agriculture research? Well, first, it's about the work. When you look at precision agriculture and unique relationships and partnerships such as this relationship, this cooperative agreement with Grand Farms, when you look at the opportunities in precision agriculture that then are multiplied by opportunities in artificial intelligence and data, we know there are real chances to expand farm income and invest in farmers. But it's also about investing in the facilities. And you'll hear from Undersecretary Jacobs-Young about the 90-plus facilities that ARS operates, the impact that you have when you come to a college and you're trying to figure out what to major in, and you're looking at the medical facility, and you're looking at the ag research facility, and that might influence what you think is going to be the most prosperous opportunities for you and your family. And then it's about investing in people. It's about that relationship, those collaborations that we saw here today, that when we are connected to farmers, when we are connected to private sector and nonprofit sector, we're able to best expand our research opportunities. I think one way to show that was a recent conversation I had with a generational farm. I talked about the advancements of each successive generation. And the grandfather was the one who purchased the land and got the first tractor. The father invested in water tiling and water technologies for managing control. The son called himself a soil scientist, recognizing that investments in precision agriculture, being able to save on the cost of inputs like fertilizer through directed application will make a world of difference and allow him to continue his farm into the future. But it will also allow us to continue to advance United States agriculture across the world. One of the last conversations I had at a land-grant institution was a researcher who said it had always been his dream to work at USDA. And the reason why is because he was an immigrant from India. And he grew up receiving USDA commodities as support for nutrition. And so getting the chance to now come here and contribute to the research that continues to feed the world gave him purpose every single day. So those are the many reasons why agriculture and investments in research are fundamental to who we are as a nation and fundamental to the opportunity of people, all of the people sitting in this room, to make sure that we can continue farming into the future for generations, for whatever new innovations will come. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, and I look forward to some questions and answers with you, so appreciate that opening statement. And now Dr. Chavonda Jacobs-Young, again, it's so appropriate that you're here, Assistant Secretary, and particularly appreciate your strong leadership on all things research funding for both ARS and NIFA. So please, we welcome your testimony.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and I do need to highlight that this is not your first visit as well.
Right.
And so, and you need to keep coming back as we continue to improve the weather every time you come.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I certainly appreciate that, Senator Hoeven. And to our esteemed senators, thank you so much for making time to be here today with us. I enjoyed our conversations last night. To my colleague, Deputy Secretary Soch, she's amazing, and I am just honored to be sitting beside her this morning. You know, I've had 22 years at USDA, and all of that time working in the science arena and really working to advance our ability to be able to meet the challenges that we face, not only as a nation, but as a global community, as we do all of this because we want to make sure that there's no one left hungry in this world. Currently, there are over 800 million people around the world without enough to eat. And a lot of those people are right here in the United States of America. After all, why are we doing what we do? And so as we gather together to talk about ag innovation and research, you all have made some very strong statements today. I'd like to just talk about three things that I think are important to innovate, to make sure that we can meet the challenges before us. And the first one is be prepared. You've heard about the status of our buildings and facilities. We were at University of Florida when the young lady said, I take tours and then I have to show the kids our building. And that's not okay. When we look across our land grant system, we have tremendous deferred maintenance. In ARS alone, you've heard about some of the amazing work they do. We have over $1 billion in deferred maintenance. I am thankful for the support that Congress has given us to invest in our facilities, and we just hope to have that continued success. To innovate, to integrate artificial intelligence, machine learning, GIS systems, we have to have broadband. We have to have high-powered networking systems to move that data to and fro, to analyze, to share, to high-performance computing, to cloud storage. So we need all of those things. And we need professionals. Currently in ARS, NIFA, ERS, and NAS, we have 1,500 employees eligible to retire today. The 2022 census told us that our producers are average age 58.1 years old. At point one, I don't know what that means, but point one. As I get older, that doesn't sound so old. But we know that a large portion of those producers are over the age of 65. We have a tremendous need to train the next generation of ag professionals. in a multitude of disciplines and diversities that look like America. I'm thankful for the $262.5 million in the Next Gen program that was supported by the American Rescue Plan and further cemented in further legislation. We thank you for that. That's going to help us. So we need to be prepared. Making those investments are going to be important. We can't wait for tomorrow to get prepared for tomorrow. And the second one is push the envelope. We talked about the amazing work that's already been done by some of our scientists working together. We can't rest on our laurels. We have to continue to push, looking 10, 20, 50 years down the road, making sure that we are prepared. And then the third one is pass the baton. As many of us have just continued watching the Olympics, I know some of you know how the relay races turned out. And we know that properly securing the baton is critically important to our success. Well, that's also true in science. If all of the great work that happens here at Grand Farm stays on Grand Farm, we have failed. And passing the baton means that in agriculture, we don't do science for science sake. There's a problem, we find a scientific solution, and more importantly, we get it into the hands of the people that need it. And so today, my 3 points: be prepared, push the envelope, and pass the baton. And I believe that we have the capacity to do all of that. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
That was very appropriate because as
Drop the mic.
I thought that was very appropriate because as I recall, I mean, the women just blew everyone away.
Pass the baton well.
Perfect baton passes and really fast running, and it was awesome. And then the men, what's up? Right? What? How many, fourth Olympics in a row?
As a former track athlete, it upsets me very much so.
I know. You get the 4 fastest runners and they finished, I don't know. Anyway, you're right on passing the baton. It's a great analogy, and glad you're here today to help do that. Actually, Senator Klobuchar has to step out for a couple minutes, but she'll be back. And so she's going to go first with some questions. And that was the agreement we worked out, that she could go first, but she has to come back. So if when she goes out there, keep an eye on her. And if she makes a break for it, we'll send somebody after her. Go ahead, Senator.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator Hoeven. And I know you did call 2 women ag leaders here because they know how to pass the baton. Okay, so I want to start with something we talked about last night, Dr. Jacobs-Young. And I really appreciate your insights on this. It's just we are seeing investments in research and infrastructure from countries like China, specifically around the world. And if we want to stay ahead, not just for our own, which we've all talked about, domestic production and helping feed the world, or we're going to have to step it up on innovation, because that's how we've always been able to be the leader. Could you talk a little bit about what's going on around the world with some of these other countries and investment?
Thank you. I'll say a brief
thank you.
amount and
Deputy
then pass it over to
Yeah, nice
Undersecretary
baton,
Jacobs-Young.
yeah.
But absolutely, Undersecretary Jacobs-Young can speak to the specifics and the value of the investment. But when we think about the next opportunities, specifically in artificial intelligence, we know we have real competition when it comes to China. And what we've seen when it comes to China's investments in AI is that they have enormous access to data. And more data, they are mining more data than we are able to compete with right now. And so that's why investments in, and specifically NIFA investments and ARS investments in data sets are fundamental to be able to provide that. Because as the United States government, we have an enormous opportunity because we own so much of those data sets. But being able to put them in a usable way where data can be analyzed and then used and then applied for farmers' benefit is going to be crucial to be able to continue to innovate in the future. And with that, I'll pass it over to Undersecretary Jacobs-Young.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. With high tech comes a lot of data, reams and reams and reams of data. And back to high performance computing, cloud storage, how do we put all of those things in place so that we can be competitive? And as we work internationally with our partners, a lot of times we need our international partnerships to solve problems. We also have to be very cognizant about the need to protect our intellectual property, to establish, basic understandings about how we operate together, because some of these challenges are just too big for us to try to solve alone.
Good. And my point is, as we senators up here at this table make the case for ag research. We just can't see it in isolation in our own country. It's part of our own national security. It's part of our global competitiveness. You did, as you talk about AI and the need to move there quickly, you did, Deputy Secretary, talk about broadband, as did the Undersecretary. The latest technologies, as we all know, require good broadband, often fiber, often being able to have the right satellite and the like. Could you talk about how important it is that we pass the bipartisan infrastructure law, as well as why we need this significant investment in broadband in rural America?
I was at a round table in Virginia when the first farmer of several came up to me and said, thank you with the work that you did in Reconnect to make sure that you're measuring connection directly to farms. Because when it comes to rural places, having that connectivity right on the farm is fundamental to futures like precision agriculture. It also is crucial in terms of collecting data, the satellite imagery, and other components that allow for more precise applications in the future. So thank you for the investment in the bipartisan infrastructure law, and specifically the $2 billion that went to USDA rural development. Rural development was the first to deliver infrastructure, funding for specifically infrastructure as opposed to mapping, and delivered it directly to communities. And now with the recurring appropriations, we're able to continue and build upon that work. The other thing that was really fundamental to that investment was that it included funding for TA. So now, as the rest of the enormous $60 billion investment in infrastructure is delivered to states, the USDA rural development is on the ground, helping provide technical assistance to communities so that they're not left out in this enormous investment.
Okay, thanks. University of Minnesota is on the cutting edge of developing new crops and hybrids that are hardy in harsh winters, wonder why we care about that, are resilient to the changing climate, that result in efficient and productive yields. The work is supported through USDA, NIFA, and the many ag industry companies we have based in our state. How is the department planning to continue supporting the kind of R&D to get these innovations into the hands of growers?
When you talk about innovations into the hands of growers, I think about the opportunity in biotech, and specifically when we look at what new seeds and management of seeds might be able to continue to generate higher yields. Been able to visit some of the really exciting work that's happened both here and also at North Carolina State University, specifically focused on increased yields with climate resilience, recognizing that drought as well as disaster can also impact that. And if there's anything additional, I'll pass it over to Undersecretary Jacobs-Young.
So just back to the infrastructure point, you know, U.S. has one of the largest germplasm collections in the world. And that germplasm collection allows us to continuously be on the hunt for traits, the markers we need to continuously improve plants and animals to be responsive to high temperatures, low temperatures, floods, droughts. So in essence, to be resilient. And that germplasm collection is often not seen. And it's something that is a gem for this country because we have the largest collection and we can go back and find the genetics that we need to breed into whatever plant or animal that we're dealing with to make sure that we can be responsive.
Okay, thank you. One last question. I've done a lot of work on biofuels. We have leaders from our corn growers here. You'll hear from shortly, leaders from our soybean growers here, big up here. And as I work with farmers and ranchers across Minnesota, I'm often reminded of the importance of our foreign trading partners, but also the need to expand our domestic markets when it comes to bioproducts. Senator Ernst and Ricketts and Stabenow and I lead the bill to strengthen the Bio-Preferred program. Could you talk about, Deputy Secretary Torres, could you talk about what research initiatives have the Ag Research Service and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture undertaken to expand the use of ag commodities in non-food markets?
Thank you so much for your focus on the Bio-Preferred program, recognizing that as we invest in biofuels and sustainable aviation fuel, we also need to use byproducts to create things like bio-based plastic or bio-based car seats. And recognizing that by diversifying that market, we're able to build the economies of scale necessary to continue that production. When it comes to the work and research that we're doing, NIFA is doubling down in multiple ways. Undersecretary Jacobs-Young mentioned the germplasm, which is also a resource which is also being used to identify and specifically research feedstocks and the ability to make them more usable for non-food-based applications.
Thanks, Senator Klobuchar. I've got a couple questions for our witnesses, and then we'll move on to other senators as well. Starting with Secretary Torres Small, but really for both of you, I'd mention at the outset that we've put together a formal cooperative agreement between North Dakota State University, Grand Farm, and the Ag Research Service of USDA. We're very excited about it. And we've not only put that cooperative agreement together, through Appropriations, we're putting money behind it, and we have now since 2022, and we're going to continue to. Already have done it again in the Ag Appropriations bill, which we've moved through the full committee this year. And hopefully, last year we were one of the first bills to the floor. I hope we are this year too. And broad-based bipartisan consensus. But now I want to ask you about it, because we see this kind of collaborative partnership as one of the ways to put some jet fuel behind reaching into the future when we talk about ag technology, when we talk about precision agriculture, when we talk about ag research, right? Because you're bringing all these different sources of innovation, of funding, and of expertise together, right? And so I want you to tell me if you support that concept. I certainly hope the answer is yes. And then to expound on that a little bit.
This would be a dangerous place, but if I said no, but fortunately it's a wholehearted yes. When it comes to public-private partnerships, it's crucial that we work together. And one of the exciting things about Grand Farm and the cooperative agreement is that it's not just USDA and Grand Farm. It's also the connection to North Dakota State University and being able to leverage all of the resources of the land-grant institution. We've seen that bear fruit in other similar relationships. When I visited Florida, we got to see some of the exciting work that was happening with blueberry genetics because of a public-private partnership that was similar. And one of the things that was unique about that, or that was special about that, was being able to have USDA researchers on site with researchers from the university. And that provides an opportunity for some of our expertise, also some of our perspective in terms of working with various different types of farmers, small, mid-size, and large, and what was most going to be needed in terms of research to direct that. So we're eager to continue to expand this cooperative agreement, to look at possibilities like locating ARS employees, and also recognize the importance of making sure that the right technology and lab equipment is here to be able to fully leverage that expertise. But I'm glad that you also mentioned Dr. Chavonda Jacobs-Young, because she was chief scientist when the cooperative agreement was first signed. So I'll pass it over to you if you have any additional thoughts.
Simply to say that, you know, the cooperative agreement, when that vehicle is used, means that we are entering into a partnership. So it's not a grant, it's not some sort of award. It means that we are walking hand in hand with the other party to the agreement. Mm-hmm. And so this idea about public-private partnerships, both with private industry and philanthropy, is something that, you know, your wisdom in Congress's infinite wisdom created the Foundation for Food and Ag Research, because you will also recognize how important it is that we all work together. We've talked about the decline in investments in ag research. We can't afford not to work together. We have to leverage every dollar and every ounce of potential.
And I want to pick up right there. And again, thank you for being on board and helping us put that agreement together. And you're 100% right. The agreement is an official partnership to work together. The funding we bring, whether I work on that through Ag Appropriations, or whether these great legislators that are here work to bring state dollars into it, or whether these outstanding leaders of industry in the ag world that are here today bring private resources, that's the leverage that makes this a new paradigm that when I say jet fuel, I mean it. And this is about how, in a resource-constrained environment, we do a lot more for the people we serve in agriculture. And so when Doug Goring, Secretary Goring, Commissioner Goring goes in to see these legislators, we just give him a stronger hand to get those matched dollars, or when a visionary like Greg Tavine goes to his friends at all these ag companies, large and small, and says, hey, you need to invest in this project, right? It's that leverage, it's that coming together that creates a synergy that takes us to the next level. And that's a very important concept that we want to highlight. And not only is that important for us here in the Red River Valley, that's a national issue. And we want to make sure people understand it, and we're going to put all the muscle behind it that we can. And so any ideas that you have on how we can do a better job, we want to hear them now and on a continuous basis. So again, as we go into this Farm Bill, are there other things that you would recommend that we do to continue to build that paradigm? Again, starting with Secretary Torres and then Dr. Jacobs-Young.
We've been in close collaboration about the Farm Bill and recognizing that although currently the majority of funding for NIFA comes through appropriations, there's been conversations across all proposals, whether it's the House version, the Senate version from Senator Stabenow or from Ranking Member Boozman. All of them recognize the need when it comes to investments in research. One of the challenges when it comes to the Farm Bill is figuring out how to fund it and knowing that we've got to be honest about the numbers that are available and basing that on an appropriate assessment. So as we look to invest, both in facilities, in partnerships, making sure that we have a long-term plan that is based in an honest assessment of what money we have available. And I'll turn it over to Undersecretary Jacobs-Young for additional comments.
Yes, so in addition, and I know we're talking about the Farm Bill, but I want to talk about overall. And having spent 2 years at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy and been in ag 22 years at USDA, we continue to have the challenge of impressing upon people how high-tech agriculture is. That we are a high-tech, scientifically driven industry. So when we talk about acts, right, whether it's in the Ag Committee or any committee, we should be a part of the conversation. And that we should not have to depend on our cousins to partner with us, that we should be seen as high-tech, scientifically driven, and important for investments.
Did Greg Tavine write some talking points for you? Because I don't know how you could have said that any better.
No, he didn't,
That was
but
awesome.
I like it.
That was awesome, and that was 100% right on, and that is absolutely the idea. So thanks to you both. Also, Dr. Jacobs-Young, I do want to commend you both, Aaron Oban. You're on-the-ground person here with Rural Development, or I should say Torres Small, excuse me. You're on the person ground here with Rural Development, following your footsteps, I might add, but is doing a great job. And also Marcy Svenningsson, our state director. They're doing good work, and we appreciate them very much. So I wanted to acknowledge that as well. Thank you. Senator Boozman, do you feel up to asking a few questions?
I think so. I think I've got enough energy to do that. Again, thank you all for being here, and we really do appreciate working with both of you. I've gotten to know you both very well, and we appreciate all of your hard work, and it is a lot of work. Undersecretary Young, on before your confirmation and after, we've talked a little bit about the USDA's Agricultural Research Service partnership with the National Agricultural Law Center. And we have a witness here, Harrison Pittman, who actually runs that, and is going to talk a little bit later, because we've got all this advancing technology, and then there's legal implications, regarding that. But can you speak to the importance of USDA's partnership with centers like the National Ag Law Center and others located in states including Arkansas, Minnesota, and North Dakota?
Senator Boozman, if you don't mind, I'll start and then pass
Yes,
it over.
ma'am. Whatever you say.
I'm sorry. I can't help but speak about the great relationship that we have with Harris and Pittman, and specifically when it comes to how usable the National Law Center's information is. The direct relationship with Cooperative Extension and providing that national, that legal advice to Cooperative Extension is crucial, because it's information in the hands of farmers. Also, we were just talking about how increasingly important that kind of information is going to be as we look at recent Supreme Court decisions that are going to impact how we're able to promulgate regulation. And working with the National Law Center is going to be fundamental to identifying how to respond and make sure that our decisions are appropriate and defensible in courts of law. It also strikes me in conversations with young people recently that a large portion of farmers are thinking about going into ag law because they see it as fundamental to doing the work on the ground. And so having a resource like the National Law Center is crucial to be able to training not just the lawyers of the future, but the farmers of the future who have that background. I'll pass it over to Undersecretary Jacobs.
Yes, and as we talk about pushing the envelope, often we have to make sure that we have an innovation ecosystem that is prepared for, often people ask me, so what's the next big thing? And I will say, my response is, if I know what the next big thing is, it's not big enough. And so often our systems have to catch up with the next big thing. And so the Ag Law Center is important, as well as a lot of our different processes, to make sure that when we have these developments and these discoveries, we can actually use them.
Good. Thank you very much. Deputy Secretary Small, you mentioned making it easier to access USDA programs by providing simpler forms, loan applications. I agree that it shouldn't take a grant writer to apply for USDA programs. So can you describe what USDA has done so far and what is planned for the future to make USDA more accessible to rural America? We've talked about this a lot. In fact, she was actually down in that. It wasn't a hearing, but we had a listening session in Arkansas, and a mayor from a little town expressed her concern of this. This is a very small community. They felt like they needed to hire a grant writer that was going to cost $30,000 or something. So the Undersecretary, the Secretary jumped in and really helped with that and got the USDA loan. But I was at the groundbreaking a couple of months ago where it was the biggest area in Arkansas that was underserved with water. So it was 500 families that had no water, that had wells that were gone bad, that were hauling water. And because of USDA and then others all working together, we were able to solve that problem. So, but again, I think what I hear, and I know what you hear too, is it's too complicated, it takes too long to decide, and it takes too long to get the money. I know you've been working on it. Tell us what's happening and how we can help as a committee to make things a little bit easier in that regard.
Thank you, Senator Boozman, for your strong focus on this. It's a joy to get to work with you on it. And I'll tell the story of farm loans as one example of the different ways we have to work to be a better partner to farmers and everyone who relies on USDA. When it comes to farm loans, one of the things we recently announced was the ability to apply for your loan online. Now that doesn't sound like much, but it has not occurred before this administration, and the ability to not have to drive into an FSA office, but you can if you want to, is huge. But it wasn't just about applying for the loan online, it was also about having a tool online that a farmer could navigate to identify what's the right loan product that I should be looking for based on my needs. And then it was about being able to, we just recently announced another advancement, to be able to pay your loan online, because believe it or not, you couldn't pay your farm loan online before this year.
I would believe it.
Those are the challenges that we face. And so now we've also cut down the farm loan application from 29 pages to 13. And just 2 weeks ago, we announced a change in regulation. The farm loan regulations hadn't been updated for 40 years, for longer than I've been alive. And when it comes to making sure that farmers have that access, being able to decrease the amount of collateral that's required, limiting whether or not you have to put your private home online in order to get a loan, or extending the term payment so that it fits with your plan and your business plan. This should be able to better serve farmers so that they have the financial freedom to make the investments that they need.
Very good. Dr. Young, can you talk about the outreach the agency does to producer groups, private companies, public research institutions to understand what they are looking to see the federal government focus research investments on for innovation, precision agriculture?
Absolutely. We spend an enormous amount of time in conversation with stakeholders. I was just talking to my colleague sitting behind me here. I just met this morning about March Madness. And it's not basketball, no worries, Senator Hoeven. I know I use a lot of sports analogies, but March Madness for us is right after the president typically releases his budget in February. We have all of the stakeholder groups come into Washington, D.C., and I know they stop by and visit you guys, but they also come to USDA, and we get a chance to hear from them about their top priorities. More importantly, we get a chance to be able to hear where our programs are working well and where there's opportunities for us to maybe refocus and sometimes redirect funding in terms of how we're prioritizing our investments. So we spend a lot of time in communication, and then with the 95 plus locations for ARS, a third of our labs on university campuses, we're constantly in the community engaging with folks.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Chavonda.
Thank you, Senator Boozman. Senator Smith.
Thank you, Senator Hoeven, and super interesting panel. I'm really grateful for this. And I also suspect, Senator Hoeven, that I know we're all eager to hear from the industry panelists as well. So I'm going to confine myself just to one question so that we have a chance to hear from everybody. And what I'd like to ask you both about, last night we had a really interesting discussion about the value of value-add research and what we can do so that Midwestern commodities, for example, we don't just ship them off to the Pacific Coast, but we are adding value here, keeping more money and more opportunity here at home. So I wonder, I think the example of that Senator Klobuchar was getting at around advanced biofuels, just as one example of what we can do here. So I'm wondering if you could both talk about the importance of research in this area, talk about how the public-private partnership mechanism needs to work in this area, and what opportunities you see for farmers. I'm particularly interested in where the opportunities might be for emerging farmers or smaller scale operations in this area of value add.
When it comes to value add, it's crucial that we're investing in opportunities for all types of farmers. And specifically, when you look at ag income and how it's defined and how it's distributed, where we have over 85% of the funds of the ag income are going to 7% of the farmers. We know that it's crucial that we invest in all and that added value can be accessible to all. So when you look at sustainable aviation fuel, for example, that's a system that's already set up to be able to, that any farmer that's growing corn or soy should be able to have access to. But we've got to make sure that there's the scale for that. And that's why the upcoming Regulation 45Z is going to be fundamental to giving farmers credit for the practices they're implementing on the ground to support access to that market through sustainable aviation fuel. Another way that we know added value is important is investing in biorefineries close to home here in the Midwest. Now, rural development has a program, 9003, that does recognize and invest in that crucial middle point between when you've got an idea, when you've got the technology, but you have to commercialize it. Unfortunately, we've had some barriers in 9003, and we've really appreciated the collaboration with the Ag Committee on ways that we might be able to make those funds more accessible and make sure that that money is being utilized in the most intentional way. And then it's also about, as we talked about, bio-based products. How do we not just invest in the biofuels piece, but recognize that all of the other components that are the additional components that might be used through bio-based products, and building a real marketplace around that through labeling with rural development. So with that, I'll pass it over to Undersecretary Jacobs-Young.
Everything that Deputy Secretary Torres said, and I'll just add that from a research perspective, it's part of our job to stay on the cutting edge, looking at feedstock development, looking at agronomic practices, harvesting, conversion practices and processes. And so we want to be in the laboratories and on the farms really trying to discover what is the next big transformational step in this space, whether we're doing bioplastics or biofuels. And so how do we have that 1-2 punch an economic opportunity for our producers in those communities, and protect our earth.
Thank you, Senator Smith, and thank you again, both to Secretary Torres Small and as well as Dr. Jacobs-Young for being here, for your testimony, most of all for your hard work and the good relationships that we have that are so important as we work forward on this farm bill and all the other things that are important to agriculture in the future. So that will wrap up this round of witnesses, although it will not wrap up the work that both Secretary Small and Young are doing here, because there will be a young farmer roundtable that will start at 1 o'clock that I look very much forward to, and obviously anyone that would like to listen in on that is certainly invited to attend as well. And we appreciate so much your focus on young farmers, beginning farmers as well, and obviously that's going to be a very important component in the Farm Bill. I think the average age for farmers right now, Dr. Boozman, is about 60, which is remarkably young for guys like you and me. But certainly for a lot of folks, they think that that's getting up there where we better get this next generation in the business of farming. And there's some pretty tall barriers to entry. And so that's a very important focus. So again, thanks so much to both of you, and maybe we could have a round of applause for these outstanding witnesses.
Thank you.
Okay, we will take a quick, and I mean quick, it's 5 minutes to get the next crew up there. So we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. 5.